This is why you should never drive alone at night, especially on Route 44. Tom's headlights cut through the fog on Route 44 in Rehoboth. It was 11:23 p.m., almost midnight. A flash of white, a woman in a wedding dress, thumb out. Tom's pulse quickened. "Leave her, pick her up." His hand hovered over the turn signal. He pulled over. "Need a ride?" She nodded, silently. Her dress, muddy, torn, her eyes vacant. "I'm Tom, where to?" "The church," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves. Tom drove on. The fog thickened. Her skin seemed to glow. They passed a sign, St. Mary's Church, 2 miles. The woman tensed. Tom glanced over. Empty seat. Heart racing, Tom looked up. There she stood by the church gates. She raised a hand, then vanished. Tom sped home, shaken. Next morning, a newspaper headline caught his eye. 80th anniversary of Rehoboth ghost bride legend. The photo showed his passenger, May 1943. That night, driving past the church, Tom saw a familiar figure in white, thumb out, waiting. The clock struck midnight. "Do you believe in ghosts? After this you might." Lisa's hands trembled on the wheel as she drove down Highway 666 in New Mexico. The sun had just set, casting eerie shadows. She'd heard the ghost stories, demonic truckers, phantom hitchhikers, but it was the quickest way home. Suddenly a figure appeared in her headlights. A man with his thumb out. Every instinct told her to keep driving, but something about his desperate eyes made her slow down. "Where are you headed?" she asked. "Just up ahead," he replied, voice hollow. Against her better judgment, Lisa unlocked the door. As they drove, she noticed his clothes looked old-fashioned and his skin too pale. "Almost there," he whispered as they neared a sharp bend. Suddenly a truck appeared in her lane, headlights blinding. She swerved hard. Tires screeched, the world spun. When the car stopped, Lisa was alone. The man had vanished. Shaken, she drove on and saw a roadside memorial. The plaque read, "John Doe, unidentified hitchhiker, killed 1959. Lisa's blood ran cold. In her rearview mirror, a figure stood by the road, thumb out, waiting for the next driver on Highway 666.
If you love ghost stories but fear the unknown, then buckle up for this spine-chilling tale. It was a dark, stormy night on Route 2. Ethan was alone, driving through the relentless downpour. Suddenly his headlights revealed a hitchhiker. Against his better judgment, he stopped. She was young, pale, and eerily silent. As they drove, she directed him to a deserted dirt road. "Stop here," she whispered. Ethan turned to speak, but she had vanished. Panicking, he saw her in his rearview mirror, but her eyes were empty, lifeless. Ghostly figures closed in, pressing against the truck's windows. Ethan's truck tumbled down a ravine. Days later it was found, but Ethan was nowhere to be seen. Now, on stormy nights, drivers on Route 2 report seeing a man and a young woman, both with empty eyes, looking for a ride. The highway of death claims another. Be careful who you stop for.
This is why you should never stop at isolated intersections. I was traveling with my ex-boyfriend through Nebraska. Endless cornfields surrounded us. OnStar took us off the interstate. We ended up on a back highway. We approached a four-way stop. A car was seemingly broken down in the middle. I felt uneasy. "Don't stop," I said. My boyfriend agreed, but still braked at the stop sign. Suddenly, 3 guys got out of the broken-down car. I yelled at my ex to get us out of there. He quickly turned and sped off. I looked in the rearview mirror. My blood ran cold. One of them was holding something out at us. A machete, or worse, a gun. More people started emerging from the cornfields. They were planning to ambush and kill someone. We narrowly escaped their trap, but the next victims might not be so lucky. Remember, trust your instincts. Some stops aren't worth making.
This is why you should never cross Stuckey's Bridge at night. Stuckey's Bridge, Lauderdale County, Mississippi, built in 1901, named after a murderous innkeeper. Stuckey lured travelers to his inn, robbed and killed them, tossed bodies in the river. His reign of terror lasted years. Finally caught, hanged from the bridge, but death wasn't the end for Stuckey. His spirit lingers, seeking revenge. Locals report eerie green lights on the water, the sound of bodies splashing below, screams echo in the night. Stuckey's victims or new prey? Some see a figure swinging from the bridge. Others feel invisible hands pushing them. A couple stopped on the bridge one night. Their car wouldn't start. Terror set in. They saw a man approaching, friendly smile. He offered help. They almost accepted. Then they noticed. His feet didn't touch the ground. They ran, never looked back. The next day their car was found. Doors open, no one inside. Some say they joined Stuckey's victims. Others believe they escaped, barely. Drive by Stuckey's bridge on a dark night, you might see a figure. Thumb out, needing a ride. Remember, not all bridges lead to safety. And some highwaymen never stop collecting tolls.
Am I the only one that didn't know about the mysterious disappearance of lighthouse keepers? The storm raged outside the Flannan Isles lighthouse as Jack huddled by a flickering lamp. Isolated, haunted by nightmares, he tried to believe it was all in his head. But when he saw 3 ghostly figures, just like in his dreams, standing at the cliff's edge, fear gripped him. He wrote his final log entry, the ink still wet, December 15, 2000. Storm severe. Strange occurrences, God help us we saw it. A week later the supply boat found the lighthouse empty, its beam dark. Jack had vanished, just like the 3 keepers a century before. Sailors now say they see 4 figures on stormy nights, watching, waiting. The Flannan Isles lighthouse, automated and abandoned, holds its secrets tight, and whispers still carry on the wind, hinting at a fate worse than death. Who's brave enough to answer the call?
What I wish I knew before becoming a curator at the British Museum's occult collection. Ghosts don't just haunt, they collect. Dr. Amelia Blackwood thought she'd seen it all, until she started cataloguing artifacts rumoured to be haunted. Objects moved when she wasn't looking. Whispers echoed through the stacks, and always the sense of being watched. The scrolls spoke of haunted wells, the mirrors of vampire realms, and the dolls, eyes that followed her every move. One night, Amelia heard a soft whisper, "Ichi, ni, san." She turned, but no one was there, just a wet footprint beside her desk. Then, the unthinkable. A Victorian ghost reached out, brushing her cheek with electric coldness. She woke on the floor, a necklace, one she never wore, now around her neck. "Welcome to the collection, curator," echoed through the basement. Amelia ran, but the museum's layout twisted, trapping her. Now, trapped between worlds, Amelia's reflection is a ghostly echo. Her story, just another artifact in the museum's eerie collection. Ever visited the British Museum? Look closely. You might just see her watching you.
It began with one woman. Frau Troffea stepped into the streets of Strasbourg and started to dance. She danced for days without stopping, no music, no rest, just endless manic movement. Within a week, 34 others joined her frenzied ballet. By month's end, 400 people were dancing themselves to death. Some danced until their feet were bloodied and bones broke through skin. Others suffered heart attacks and strokes, collapsing in the streets. Priests declared it a curse. Doctors were baffled. The town's solution, more dancing. They built stages and hired musicians, thinking the afflicted would dance it out. It only made things worse. When it was over, dozens were dead. Centuries later, we still don't know what caused it. Mass hysteria, ergot poisoning, or something darker. What if it happened again? In your town, would you be able to resist the urge to dance? Or would you join the deathly chorus line? Remember, this really happened, and history has a way of repeating itself.
The iron gates of Eastern State Penitentiary creaked shut behind me, 48 hours alone in America's most haunted prison. I thought I was prepared. I was wrong. Hour 1. The silence is oppressive. My footsteps echo off century-old stone. This place held Al Capone. Now it holds darker secrets. Hour 6. A child's laughter from an empty cell. I spin around, nothing. But the air feels colder. Hour 13. Shadows move at the edge of my vision. The walls seem to breathe. I tell myself it's just my mind playing tricks. Hour 19. Scratching sounds from inside the walls. Prisoners were once buried alive here for attempted escapes. Are they still trying to get out? Hour 27. A ghostly face in a cracked mirror, eyes filled with centuries of pain. I blink. It's gone, but I can still feel it watching. Hour 36. Whispers in the dark. Help us. Join us. I cover my ears, but they're inside my head. Hour 42. Footsteps behind me. Heavy, dragging. I run, but they're always just around the corner. Hour 47. I'm huddled in a corner. Something is coming. The air crackles with malevolence. I can't breathe. Hour 48. The gates open. I stumble out, changed forever. But part of me never left, and something followed me home, Eastern State Penitentiary, where time served never truly ends.
May 8, 1982, Martinique. Mount Pelée rumbled for days. The city ignored the warnings. They called it the Paris of the Caribbean. 30,000 people. Their last sunrise, 7:50 a.m. The mountain exploded. A cloud of superheated gas erupted, moving at 420 miles per hour. Temperature 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit. People had 2 minutes. The cloud hit like a blowtorch. Buildings vaporized instantly. People burst into flames where they stood. The harbor water boiled. 18 ships sank in minutes. Only 2 people survived. One was a prisoner in a stone cell. Found days later, badly burned. The other was a cobbler in his basement. Everyone else incinerated. Today St. Pierre is rebuilt. But locals say on quiet nights, you can hear the screams of 30,000 souls. Remember, some mountains hold grudges, and sometimes paradise becomes hell in minutes.
January 15th, 1919, Boston's North End. A tank of molasses towered over the streets. 2.3 million gallons of thick, dark syrup, 50 feet tall, the size of a building. Workers heard it groaning for days, like a monster about to wake. 12:30 p.m., temperature rising. The tank's metal walls buckled. Suddenly, an explosion like a cannon. The tank ripped apart at the seams. A wave of molasses, 15 feet high, moved faster than people could run, 25 miles per hour, crushing everything in its path. Buildings collapsed like cardboard. Horse-drawn carriages tossed like toys. People caught in the wave couldn't escape. The more they struggled, the deeper they sank. Some drowned, sticky deaths, others crushed by debris in the flood. Horses screamed, trapped in the thick syrup. Their struggles only pulled them deeper. Rescuers found victims preserved, like insects in amber. The cleanup took weeks. Workers used salt water to dissolve the mess. Even today, on hot summer days, locals say the streets still smell sweet. The death toll 21 souls, claimed by the slowest tsunami in history. Remember, death comes in many forms, and sometimes the sweetest things are the deadliest. The Erfurt latrine disaster. A royal flush of death, July 1184, Erfurt, Germany. A gathering of nobility in a church, the floor a cesspit of human waste. Suddenly the wooden floor creaks, planks snap, screams erupt. In seconds, 60 people plunge into a pit of excrement. Nobles, knights, clergy, all drowning in sewage. The crowd panics, more fall in as they try to flee. The pit deepens, the stench is overwhelming. Some try to save others, they're pulled in too. The pit becomes a whirlpool of death. When it's over 100 lie dead, drowned in human waste. King Henry VI barely escapes. He watches in horror as his nobles suffocate in filth. The church, abandoned, the dead, left to rot, the smell lingers for months. Today it's known as the Erfurt latrine disaster, a reminder that death can come from below. Next time you're in a crowded place, what's beneath your feet? Remember, this really happened. And sometimes the floor isn't as solid as you think. The Radium Girls glowing in the dark, 1917, US Radium Corporation. Young women paint watch dials with radium paint. They're told it's safe, harmless, even healthy. The paint glows in the dark, so do the girls. They playfully paint their teeth, their faces, their bodies shimmer at night. They think it's beautiful, but then their teeth start falling out, their jaws dissolve, their bones crumble, they're dying painfully, horribly. The company knows the truth. Radium is deadly, but they hide it. Profit over lives. The women fight back. In court, their bones glow under X-rays. Jaws fall off as they testify. They win, but it's too late for many. Their bodies, buried in lead-lined coffins, will remain radioactive for 1,600 years. Today, their graves still glow. The horror isn't over. Radium is still used in everyday items. It could be in your home right now. Are you glowing in the dark? Remember, this really happened. And corporate greed never dies.